And you're in Washington, D.C., I assume. And I just had Senator Bill Hagerty in the previous hour, and I did ask for his opinion on what Washington, D.C. is looking like these days. I have not had you on in a while, and I don't think I've had you on since the National Guard went into Washington, D.C. So can you tell a big difference between the Washington, D.C. before the National Guard and then after the National Guard?
I haven't had a chance to venture out too far from the Hill. You usually only had to go about 2 blocks to start seeing people who obviously were using drugs laying on the sidewalks, interfering with people, trying to have outdoor dinners or lunches. And so I haven't really had an opportunity to venture far from the Capitol, but you didn't have to go but a couple blocks to start seeing, the problem exists. So I don't know what Senator Hagerty had to say. Maybe he's looked around a little more, but something definitely needed to be done.
Do you ever go outside the Capitol, Congressman, or are you just like that, your little, 2-block area that you just refuse to go out from?
Well, it's not that I refuse to. It's just that when we're here, we're busy, and there's not a lot of time to sightsee and get around to the other areas. So pretty much when we're here, we're working.
All right. So big in the news today, and I got to make sure that I ask you this. Of course, the battle over Epstein does continue, and you've got Thomas Massie, Republican, Ro Khanna, a Democrat, and they had this meeting. Nancy Mace, of course, famously walking out of that meeting in tears with some of these Epstein survivors, if you will, some of these victims that, So I guess my question is, they are trying to get this discharge petition passed so that they will ultimately end up demanding the release of these Epstein files. That is something that goes through the House. So what are your thoughts on all of this? I mean, they already released some. James Comer already released some files. A lot of these were files and photos that, many people have already seen. As a matter of fact, the 2 congressmen that I just mentioned came out last night and said, well, only about 3% of those 34,000 documents were actually new. And so I guess the question is, if this discharge petition actually happens, how will you vote? And just give me your thoughts on the whole thing.
Well, first of all, a discharge petition is a tool of the minority. So you're giving the minority the power. You get a handful of Republicans, and all the Democrats will jump on because they love to see Republican infighting. I still beg the question, when Biden was in control and they controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House, if there was something in there against Trump, knowing he was going to run again, they would have released it. So I think people would be really disappointed if they released all the documents. I think the big concern right now is that for some of the victims, the exposure that they would be subjected to would be a problem. I think anybody that committed a crime, I don't care if it's Trump, Clinton, whoever, if Pam Bondi has that information, I've made this statement before, they need to be prosecuted. If they willingly engaged in illegal activity with underage girls, then, by all means, every one of those people should be prosecuted. But when you release entire sets of documents, you get guilt by association, where people, didn't really do anything, maybe just happened to be in the same room with the guy, and then they have to somehow prove that they're not a pedophile. And so you got to protect the victims. You can create a lot of problems for people who just happen to have a loose association with the guy. But I also think that Pam Bondi and Trump overplayed their hand during the campaign. They acted like, okay, we got the goods right here, and when I'm president, we're going to release these things, and everybody's going to see them. And then all of a sudden afterwards, well, it was a suicide, and there is no list. And so I think that because they misplayed that, that created this turmoil here, and the Democrats are just jumping on it because they see some division among the Republican ranks, and they just want to stir that as much as they can.
Well, and Thomas Massie, of course, is a Republican, but he's an anti-Trump Republican. So in this case, he's giving the Democrats and the media the ability to say that this is a bipartisan effort when in reality, Thomas Massey, I don't know. I mean, you spend more time with him than I do, Congressman Scott DesJarlais. But is Thomas Massey, he's anti-Trump? I mean, is there anything that he's ever agreed with Trump on?
He's probably the person. I came in the same class with him in 2011. He votes no on almost everything. Rand Paul in the Senate is similar. His dad, Ron Paul, was kind of an isolationist. Tom's a libertarian, and so he votes like a libertarian, not really a Republican. Not necessarily a team player. He is sometimes. He's a nice guy. I mean, I've always considered him a friend. But now that he's kind of gotten into this feud with Trump, it's almost like the Liz Cheney or the Adam Kinzinger thing, where they're just going at each other. Trump's threatening to, not just threatening, trying to actively get rid of him in terms of the next election. And so there's this feud going on. And Tom's a really smart guy. I mean, he's very well educated, but he just, does not vote. He's not a team player.
President Trump is going to be sending, I'm hesitating because I don't have a lot of time before traffic. So coming up, Congressman Scott DesJarlais, I'm going to ask you about the president sending U.S. Space Command to Huntsville, Alabama. This is right up your alley, and we're going to talk about that straight ahead. It is coming up on 8:15. Time to check the roads on WTN. Very good. As far as your weather for today, intervals of cloud and sun with a thunderstorm possible and a high of about 84. Going to feel like 90, about 55% of showers. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. Congressman Scott DesJarlais is joining us. And so I think this is great. Obviously, I enjoy, space stuff. And the president sending a U.S. Space Command to Huntsville, Alabama, even though I do believe it's pretty clear that there were politics involved. The president actually admitted as such. But I think this is a great thing for Alabama.
Yeah, there's no question there's politics involved. The only thing I'm disappointed in is they didn't put it in Tennessee at Arnold Air Force Base, but I'm not going to complain because it's close enough. But, no, they did a study. They looked at 6 different states. And 6 different locations is where Space Command would best be suited to function with the most efficiency. And far and away, Huntsville was chosen as the number 1 choice. Colorado was the number 5 choice. Trump wanted to put it in Huntsville where it was supposed to go. Of course, Alabama's a red state. Colorado, I could say it's purple. It's pretty much a blue state now. And General, I think Dickinson and Biden kind of just pulled the rug out from under Huntsville and said, we're putting it in Colorado Springs. And it was a real kick in the teeth at the time because, we were prepared for it. We have the infrastructure there. The Redstone Arsenal is there. The Marshall Space Center is there. It just makes a lot of sense. We had probably 7,000 to 8,000 people from my district that traveled to Huntsville to work at one of those facilities. It's expected to bring in 30,000 new jobs or at least families. Huntsville's already become the largest city in Alabama. It's about to become larger. And, nothing's done till it's done, but this needs to happen. It's how it was supposed to happen. And it's a great thing for Huntsville. It's a great thing for America. And, of course, Space Command and all that falls under my subcommittee of strategic forces. So everything I do involves Golden Dome, involves space, involves sensors, missiles, missile defense, and this is all going to be a big part of that. And so I'm really excited from my position as chairman on that committee to get to work with these guys and start getting the Golden Dome in place. And it's an hour and 20 minutes from where I live, so it's going to be really convenient. And again, it was the first choice.
Yeah, I was going to mention, that's a lot closer to home, and you can drive there, and I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing for tourism as well for the South. All right, so real quick, you just mentioned a number of different things related to rockets and missiles and all that. So You know the story. Perhaps you know the story. I'm sure that you know the story of I've talked about it a number of different times because I think this is fascinating. Where China had the big military parade. They've got all of their rockets out there, and it's supposed to be a very big deal. And Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, I guess Senator Haggerty said that Iran's leader was out there as well. And how concerned are you with, they said that they have reports are that there's a laser that can shut off electronics and blind pilots. I mean, from your vantage point, who's got the better stuff, us or China?
Okay, China is formidable. There's no question about it, and that's why we're stepping up our game. That's why Space Command is so important.
Yep.
If you cannot win on the ground in a future war without winning in space, so whoever controls the space domain will control the ground. All the fancy high-tech weaponry that we have is controlled by communicating from space, and so that's why we're spending so much time and focus on that. I think that China was rapidly catching us. They had just a handful of satellites in space. They've got a bunch now. By 2030, they could have as many or more. Not necessarily better, but you need a lot of redundancy. So the battles that are going on in space would surprise people in terms of defeating other countries' satellites. I think right now we have the edge. We have the technology. We have a lot of upstart companies that we're aligning with, and I feel good about where we're at, but we cannot take our foot off the gas. This has to go full steam ahead, and that's what we're doing in my committee and doing in Armed Services in both the House and Senate, and speeding up the acquisition process. But don't underestimate China. And, this little axis of evil that's forming with Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia, and now India, Modi's kind of stepped in and said, well, I think we're going to play with Russia and China. And I think that's just kind of a move against Trump's tariffs, I hope, and because we don't need that. But, I think we're better. I think China could surpass us if we don't stay vigilant. But if we stay vigilant and do what America does and bring in the right people, I think we'll stay ahead, and we just kind of proved we could do something that none of them could do with the attack on Iran's nuclear facility. I mean, they don't have that capability, and that was the B-2. We're about to get the B-21.
Yep.
Well, I won't say it makes the B-2 look like a toy, but it's superior, and they know that, so they're putting on a big show and trying to show that they're going to be the people that control the world, not Trump. And I don't necessarily think we want to control the world, but we don't want World War III. And best way for that is just keep it from happening, peace through strength.
So I'm going to call an audible here because I was going to ask you about government, funding. The deadline is September 30th, and do you think that is going to end up in a continuing resolution? But I just saw on CNN that I don't want to ask you that because it's boring, but. Yeah. I think we all know what's going to happen. But I just saw on CNN, there's all these calls for RFK Jr. to resign. Now, you know where he stands on, vaccines. And one of the things that he has said in the last couple of days is that he believes that all vaccines should go through the proper testing, including, I guess they call it, placebo testing, that kind of thing. And so I think people are up in arms over the fact that he is, and there's a lot here, so I'm not going to pretend that there's not a bunch of layers to this. But, I mean, you're a medical doctor, and so I guess my question to you is when it comes to RFK Jr., what do you think about everything that he is saying about, vaccines, the testing of vaccines, taking away that the ability to once again throw down a mandate for vaccines, which he did. I think it was last week or Monday he did that. But I mean, I think that he's definitely making a move against the pharmaceutical industry.
He may be. I think he's right about some things. I think he's half off the rails on a lot of other things. I can say some nice things about him. I can say some things as a position that I don't think he has background to make the claims. I think some of it's conspiracy. So I have mixed feelings about him. I think his intentions are good. I do think there's a lot of health issues that are happening in our country, younger people getting cancers and whatnot. And is that steroids growing chickens too fast? Is it, different dyes and additives to foods? Who knows? Those are the things, we really need to look at. He's always had a thing about vaccine and causing autism. And as a physician, I've not seen a proof where, not vaccinating our kids against polio and measles, mumps and rubella and diphtheria and meningitis is a bad thing. I think that's I think his process or his thinking on that maybe needs a little more work. But I'm not a fan of mandates. I don't like the government telling me I have to do anything. And the COVID is the obvious example where healthy young people were forced to take shots. They lost their jobs over it, and a lot of people had ill effects from that. So I don't think when the government starts mandating that, that's pretty much communism, not democracy or a republic. So long-winded answer, but like I said, I think his intentions are good. I think he's right about some things. I think a lot of other things that he's proposing need a lot more ironing out.
All right. Do you think the just very quickly, will the House reach an agreement on a spending plan, or is it going to be a continuing resolution? A yes or no is fine, whatever.
I mean, it's always a continuing resolution. There's going to be a debt ceiling. We don't want a government shutdown. Tom Cole's already talking about a stopgap measure, pushing it into November. September 30th is the deadline. Give us more time. And basically that means more time for another CR. The budget in D.C., as we've known for a couple decades now, has been a disaster. The spending's out of control. They can't get it together. When it comes to that, Congress does not get its job done. And so, my guess is, you got omnibus, cromnibus, CRs, whatever. None of us like them. It's just unfortunately the way it operates in such a divided government, because if we get what we want, that means the Democrats aren't getting what they want for their social program. And so the only way that it somehow works out is that it's a very bipartisan thing, and they would give probably too much away for me to vote for it. But so if there's Democrats voting for this, I'd probably be voting against it because it wouldn't be conservative enough in terms of spending. And if it's conservative enough to suit my taste, the Democrats won't vote for it. So, there's probably going to be some kind of a CR or it's just the way the cycle has been, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Well, Congressman Scott DesJarlais, always